Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you an OP Mohgyn Sacred Spear build for an Elden Ring. So this is Mohg's Nihil attack, and it is actually extremely powerful. This can help you take out a lot of different bosses in this game. Now I'll be going through the full build guide here at level 150. Now, you do typically have to be a higher level if you're not, to be able to get this weapon, but if you're not this level, recommend getting your vigor up to 30 first, and then putting your points into the minimum stat requirements. So we need 24 strength to be able to equip the Mohg Sacred Spear, and then 14 dexterity alongside that, 27 arcane. And I went with 15 faith because we can put on flame grant me strength, which is going to really boost up the amount of damage that we can do with this build. Now I went with 30 mind to be able to spam the blood boon ritual a little bit more alongside the endurance. So that is the weapon art of Mohgyn Sacred Spear, and probably the best reason to use this weapon. And then on top of that, I also went the rest of the points into arcane to have a higher blood loss buildup. So we have 89 there. What's nice about this weapon too is the weapon art is actually going to give us the blood loss buildup, which I'll show you as well. Using the Dragon Communion Seal to be able to cast incantations, which I'll go over. And I got the White Mask, which is going to increase the amount of bleed damage, or amount of damage that we deal after blood loss occurs. So the Lord of Blood's Exaltation will do that as well. So both of these are perfect for this build. Now take whatever armor you can to get your poise up to at least 56. At minimum 51 is good because that's going to allow you to resist staggering from one hit. 2 hits with 56, or 2 light hits I should say, so having your poise at least 56 is kind of crucial, especially when we're using this weapon as we're stationary with it. Now alongside that I also have the Cerulean Amber Medallion to be able to cast the spell a little bit more, and you can switch this out, but this will allow us to do the Blood Boon ritual more often. Shard of Alexander is pretty much essential, or the lesser version of this, because the skill, it's going to boost the power of the skill, which is really nice. And then the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman. Swap this out depending on what boss you're fighting. If it's dealing mostly fire damage, put on the fire version of that. Also, I got the Raw Meat Dumpling there, because your Mimic will use this to heal. So that's a nice little addition that you can put on there. Now, I'll be going through the full guide here of what we want to be doing with this. So typically before combat, Flame Grant Me Strength is going to give us a big damage buff, so we want to have that up. And alongside that, starting with Swarm of Flies is kind of nice because you can cast this a couple times before the enemy gets aggroed and deal the blood loss trigger. And once you have that blood loss built up, then you can start to do the Nihil attack here. So the Blood Boon Ritual. Be mindful, it does use a lot of your FP, but you can hit a lot of enemies in the radius with this. So that's the nice thing about this. It deals a ton of damage, and then afterwards you get the... You can see here we have the blood flame on it. So after you cast this, you get a free usage of that blood boon, or the blood flame. So I typically equip that onto this weapon, or I equip it onto any other weapon that's not this, because the blood flame blade is extremely useful. So I'll be going over the spells in a moment, but typically what we want to do is just get close enough to be able to use this skill, and then keep pressing the L2. There's 3. You'll do 3 attacks with this. So the Nihil, Nihil, Nihil. And most times, most regular mobs will be dead, but the trick to using this is make sure that your Mimic grabs aggro from the enemy, and then just go in and start spamming it. That is really the best way to go about fighting. And what's cool is, like, if you're fighting Malekith, you can kind of hide behind the pillars and then move around to be able to hit them with this, so it does have a pretty decent range. Like, we were able to just shred through all those enemies there. I'll just go refresh them, and then I'll go over some of the best spells that you can pair alongside this, because having some incantations is nice for those enemies that are more resistant to fire damage. So Flame Grant Me Strength always stays on. I like to have Dragon Ice to deal the ice damage, because you can trigger Frostbite, which will do percentage-based damage, and then you can remove it with the fire damage from this weapon. But also Rot Breath is really nice, because with Rot Breath you can deal damage over time with this if you get it triggered on an enemy. So on boss fights, using Rot Breath is extremely useful because it's going to chip away the health over time. But yeah, starting with the Swarm of Flies, if you're using a different weapon alongside this, like the Yuji Katana, you can put on the Blood Flame Blade. And Flame Grant Me Strength is kind of essential for this because of the massive amounts of damage that we can get up with this. So typically you want to get close enough, like you can see the range there is pretty good, like that's how far away we can hit with this. That is incredible. On top of that, I'll show you the Bale's Tyranny here. So this is from the DLC. This is another skill that you can use that if it scales off of Arcane, it does fire and lightning damage. So if you have something that's resistant to lightning damage, or resistant to fire damage, but even still you can deal that lightning damage there, so that's not a bad little addition to it. This weapon is a little bit slower, so I would recommend trying to use the Blood Boon Ritual as much as possible, and if you can group enemies together like this and be able to deal the damage with it, that is ideal because it will deal a ton of blood loss, so nothing nearby will be able to resist that. They'll get shredded down pretty quickly. Unless they're resistant to bleed, this is going to shred apart both enemies and bosses alike. So this build works extremely well for a variety of different situations. I really like the MOHGWYN'S Sacred Spear. I think this is probably the strongest weapon in the game, as odd as it is. The Rivers of Blood is really good too, but you can shred down bosses really fast with this. Like Godfrey, whenever you fight him at the end of the game, you can have your Mimic tank and then you can literally just shred him down super fast with this. So this build works really well in a lot of different situations. So if you found this video useful, please hit that subscribe button below. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all in the next video.